happy Super Bowl Sunday. I hope your team wins if you're watching, and if you're not, I hope you have something fun to do. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. So we have another wonderful culinary demo today from a guest who's been on many times, and you always ask for her to come back. But today is special because everything is purple. Well, not everything, but she's using a lot of purple, and purple is my favorite color. She's going to be making a purple hidden pesto, or a hidden purple pesto, and with spaghetti squash. And all you have to do is follow the link that's in the show notes to get the recipes. And by show notes, I mean the box that's underneath the YouTube video that you're watching. So if you're watching on Facebook, please consider hopping over on YouTube so that you can see everything that we're talking about, like the chat box. Please welcome back Timaree Hagenburger, also known as the Nutrition Professor. Welcome.
Thank you so much, AJ. I'm so honored to be back. And today, in honor of your favorite color and my favorite color, purple, we are doing some purple vegetables today. And some are going to be hidden, and some are going to be right out there showing their glorious color. And as you've heard me before, color in our food, when we're talking about natural colors, the plant pigments, they provide us amazing health benefits. So the more color, the better. And purple, as many of you have known, blueberries are very well known for their purplish hue. And all of the purple family provide us anthocyanins. And those are extremely helpful in our bodies to protect us from cancer and cell damage, oxidation. So we want to get this going. But I have several things that I'm going to do with you. And I know that with the show notes, it's kind of confusing for some people. So I made a really easy URL for people to be able to get the recipes. And so it's tinyurl.com/purple pesto. I did one with hidden purple pesto, but I also made it even easier for you. So tinyurl.com/purple pesto, and you will get the recipes emailed directly to you. Now, one of the intimidating pieces sometimes of cooking for someone new, or even for a long-term cooker, is squash, hard squash. So we're going to do spaghetti squash. And one of the scariest things for people with spaghetti squash is trying to cut it, because it is hard. So we don't want, and you can actually get hurt if you are trying to cut this, especially with a dull knife and it's really wobbly. So what we're going to do today is cook it whole. And we're going to use the Instant Pot. You can use any pressure cooker. You could do this in a crock pot as well. Obviously, it'll take longer. You can steam it. I actually, with the recipe, I'm giving you 4 different ways to cook it. But what we're going to do is easy. So I've already washed it. And now I'm just going to carefully make a couple cuts in it. Just stab it. That's it. And then I'm going to put it into the Instant Pot. And ideally, you want to figure out first if it's going to fit whole. So this one will definitely fit. This is my 6-quart. But if it didn't fit, then you'd want to go with another option, which would be cutting it in half widthwise. And I give you some tips about how to put it in the microwave first for a few minutes before you slice it in half, because it is so hard. So we don't need to do that because it's perfect size. So we're putting it right in the Instant Pot. You can't see it, it's out of view, but it's sitting in the Instant Pot on the rack, so it's not right on the bottom. And then I'm just adding 1 cup of water. So I'm going to grab that water, put it in, and then we'll get that Instant Pot going. And it's somewhere between 15 to 18 minutes whole. Some of the squash are really big. So yesterday when I did one, it was like end to end, just fit in there, and it took the full 18 minutes. If it doesn't cook the whole way and you feel like it needs to cook a little more, you can always just turn the Instant Pot back on. It's not a big deal. But I'm going to grab the water, get that baby going, and then we'll move into the pesto, and then we'll come back. And there are a couple other very important pieces of cooking the spaghetti squash that I want to make sure I bring your attention to. So we'll revisit that after. So let me grab some water.
What's everybody doing for Super Bowl Sunday? Type it in the chat. If you guys watched my Rancho La Puerta demonstration, I did the Super Bowl snacks and I just froze everything, and that's what we're going to have, even though I don't really watch the Super Bowl.
All right, so I am going to put the pressure cooker on manual, and I'm going to make sure that I have the top piece going towards sealing, not steaming. And I'm just going to go onto manual and I'm going to bring it down. This is a relatively small squash, so I'm going to go 16 minutes. Okay, so let me set that up. That's it, 16 minutes. And I'm going to let it do a natural pressure release for about 10 minutes. Again, if it goes a little longer, it's not a problem. All right, so that's all we have to do with the squash at this point. Once it's cooked, then we'll talk about what to do after. Now, we're going to take the purple to the next level. We are going to not only do a hidden purple pesto, but we're also going to do a purple veggie party. And that's when we're going to marry together the purple hidden pesto and the spaghetti squash. So let's do the pesto first. And I am pulling from my cookbook, the Foodie Bar Way, not a specific recipe, but the concept of a foodie bar, a pesto foodie bar. So if that's confusing to you, what that means is in my book, I actually teach you how to combine different ingredients to make your own recipes. So not only do I give you several pesto recipes that I love, that I created, but I give you the template, the format, so that you can make your own. And that's exactly what I used to make this, okay? So I'll show you my little foodie bar book in a minute, but I want to get going on the hidden purple pesto. Now, I am so excited to share with you this. Do you know what these are? These are purple tree collards. Now, I don't know if you know about these, but they grow 365 days a year. They produce 365 days a year. They're low in oxalates, which we are concerned about for those of us who love lots of greens. And they are nutty and they're incredible. So I have 2 of these plants and I bought them last year in April. I took a picture. They were just about this tall from the soil to the top. Within 1 month, they doubled. Within 1 more month, they got even taller. Now they're almost 6 feet tall. I went and bought more plants because I'm just in love with these and they're purple. So this is where we're going to get some hidden purple in our pesto, where once it gets mixed up, you're not going to see the purple anymore, but the purple is in there. Okay. Now I'm going to do a combination of these purple collards, which I'm telling you, go out and get purple collard trees. Okay. They don't take a lot of garden. I mean, they're very self growing. I mean, they take care of themselves. Now, since I don't want to just do collards, I want to be diverse in my greens, which is really important with our microbiome, is a diversity of different plants. I'm going to add some purple kale as well. Okay. So the purple kale I'm growing, this isn't from my yard yet. My little purple kale is only about this big, but it's going to be gorgeous. So we are going to add this to our pesto. So the pesto is going to have not only parsley, basil, but also purple collards and purple kale. And in the summer, I grew purple pesto or purple basil. That was just amazing. And now I'm sad because my basil is no longer in my garden, but next summer it'll be gorgeous again. So we're going to start with some of the purple kale. Now, I always keep the stems. I put the stems into stir fries and we'll add them to this purple veggie party. And I also add them to my salad mix. So many of you know my crazy salad mix if you follow me. And then collard leaf, same thing. I take the collard leaf right off of the stem. So we have a combination of our kale and collards. Okay. Now we only need a few cups of these greens, and I'm putting them into the food processor, not a blender, because I'm not going to be adding a lot of liquid. So you can use the blender if you're using a lot of liquid, but I want to use the pressure or the food processor because I'm going to use a small amount of liquid. If you wanted it thinner, you can always add a little bit of broth, vegetable broth, but I'm going to keep it a thick pesto. Okay. So let's see, I have several cups now of these greens. So I'm going to start chopping them. Now you don't have to chop them before you put them in the food processor, but I really want it to mix well. And so I'm just going to run my knife through these beautiful purple greens. Now, I'm a little Italian girl, and when I was growing up, we use olive oil in everything, including pesto. And that was something that I don't think most people who have eaten pesto would ever imagine or made pesto. How do you make it without oil? Well, not only does the Foodie Bar Way teach you and give you several recipes, but here's another recipe. We're not going to use any oil, and there's a couple secrets that I'm going to share with you. So we have the purple collards. Now we have some parsley. And you've seen me, if you've seen me before, parsley you can keep in a little bit of water. It's gorgeous, right? So I've already cleaned it. We only need a quarter of a cup here. And there's a lot of flavor in the stems, so you don't need to be super careful about making sure that you de-stem it. There's nutrition and flavor in all of it. So we've got the parsley. Now the basil, this is not mine. I wish it was. Like I said, I can't grow it right now, but it's too cold. But the purple basil in the summer was just, oh, my basil was just amazing. So one thing about pestos is that the flavors are going to be completely dependent upon what you enjoy. So if you like a more basil-y pesto, which is kind of an acquired taste for some people, that basil can be strong, then you can add, if you like more pesto-y flavor, more basil, add more. If you want less, add less. This is a really mild recipe that I'm using now because of all the other greens. So those other greens are going to be more neutral, where the basil is going to be strong. But some of us love it, right? So we want lots and lots of basil. So I said I'm going to be about half the amount of the purple greens in my basil. So about a cup. But I always tend to throw in a little extra because I do love it. So I have some beautiful basil here. And again, just putting the knife through it. Normally, when you use basil, you'll roll it up and then slice it as a chiffonade shape, but we're not concerned about that because everything is going into the food processor. Okay. Something that I haven't grabbed, which I need to, is a garbage bowl. So that helps with the way you stay organized, and that helps a lot when you're cooking. You know where to put your little pieces, little scraps. Okay, so we have the collards, we have the basil, we have the parsley. I'm going to use 2 scallions, and I've already washed them, which means I've opened up each of the top greens, and I've really made sure that there isn't any sand or dirt. A lot of people just put it under the sink and say, oh, they're clean, but they're not. There's dirt gets worked in there. So the only part I'm not going to use is the little tops, but everything else I use. It's so crazy when I see recipes that say only use the whites of the onions, of the scallions. And I think, you have to be kidding me. No way, the whole thing is fantastic. Now, I have been growing red, purple onions, and I've been using the greens from those that are growing outside as scallions. I know that they're not, but they taste amazing. So you can get creative if you're growing things in your garden. And then we're gonna add some zest. So I have a Meyer lemon, which is my favorite. The skin is so thin and the flavor is just full of juice. So we always use some zest, not only for flavor, but also because the zest has been shown to help us reduce risk of skin cancer. Just like it protects the citrus in the sun, it can protect us in the sun too. So I always remind everybody, if you've seen me before, you've heard me say that, but it's worth repeating because many people just throw those peels away, and that's goodness that they are missing out on. So you zest first and then you squeeze. If you cut first to squeeze, then it's going to be a mess to try to zest. So you always want to zest first before you try to cut the lemon for juice. And this is so juicy. My goodness, I don't even want to lose one little drop. So I'm going to use a reamer, except it's over on the other side. This is my favorite citrus tool besides the microplane, is the reamer. It's basic, but it works fantastic. So I've broken many of the press type citrus squeezers. I think I want every little drop. And so I really use my muscles and I end up breaking them. So this is not breakable. This works. So we're looking for 1 to 2 tablespoons of juice. And this lemon is so juicy. This was from my friend Camille's neighbor. She brought me these lemons and I was like, oh, it's like gold. So there's so much juice. I don't want to waste a little bit, any of it. So we just need a few tablespoons. So I'll add, and the lemon is really nice in the flavor. It just cleans. Oh, there's just a nice edge to it when you've got that lemon in there. Now we're going to add a secret ingredient. Are you ready? White beans. Now that's probably not something you think about in a pesto. However, that will give it some creaminess and some body and some smoothness to it. So we're going to add half a cup of white beans. Now I cooked, these are just Great Northern beans that I cooked in the Instant Pot. And then I froze because I knew I was going to be doing this and I wanted them easy. And because I did them in the Instant Pot, I didn't add any salt. So I just did them with water. And you can add bay leaf or you can add anything that you like. But I wanted them to be nice and cooked so they would be smooth in this pesto. Now, you can buy them canned, and now it's so much easier to find no salt added beans in the can or in the pouch. You're starting to see those as well all over the place. But if you have an Instant Pot and you're not putting it to use, then because you feel like it makes too much, then this is a great idea because you can just freeze them. So, and I'm a big freezer girl. You know, if you know me, I'm a big freezer girl. And so I'll even tell you about freezing the pesto. So I'm going to pack in the half cup because I love beans. Legumes are amazing. Now, could you use a different bean? Absolutely. You could use a black bean if you wanted. I mean, obviously it's going to change the color a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. So you use the bean that works for you. Okay, so now we have beans in there. And then two other things, three other things, onion powder, black pepper, and walnuts. Now, walnuts are completely optional. And if you are allergic, then you can do sunflower seeds or skip it completely, okay? So I'm gonna grab walnuts. They're in the freezer because I always keep nuts and seeds in the freezer because the bonds in the fatty acids themselves are very vulnerable to being destroyed by heat. So we don't want them at room temperature. And it gets hot here. I'm in kind of central California. So the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of these walnuts. And I like to have them in my food for omega-3. But I also, this is not about snacking on nuts. This is about putting nuts in a recipe because if I start snacking on them, it's very difficult to stop. And that is not what we want to do. Okay, so I'm going to get 2 more things, the onion powder and the black pepper. Now the onion powder, I don't want to talk from there. The onion powder is actually a really cool ingredient to add if you're looking to replace salt. So if you want some kick of flavor without the salt, onion powder is an excellent option. And now we're finding even organic onion powder at Costco. It's amazing. So it's much more accessible than it's been in the past as far as organic. And then we're gonna add a little bit of black pepper, just a tiny quarter of a teaspoon. And then what makes pesto besides basil is garlic. So what I have a whole head of roasted garlic. And I do this, I go and I buy many, like 15 to 20 heads of garlic, and I roast them. I slice them in half, then I put them in parchment and foil, and then I roast them. And then I put them in the freezer. Now, I love roasted garlic because it gets creamy and mellow, but you can also use fresh garlic in this recipe, no problem. However, you do not want to use the same amount. So I'm putting in a whole head. If you put in a whole head of garlic, fresh garlic, whoa, you'd be sweating it for days, which is fine, but it's really it can be overpowering, and it'll get stronger as the days go on with the pesto. So you're gonna do fresh garlic. I would highly recommend doing like 2 cloves, and then you can always add more to it, but it'll surprise you a little bit. Okay, so that's everything that goes into the pesto. And remember, I told you, if you want the recipes just delivered right to you, tinyurl.com/purple pesto. Now, this is a little bit loud, and I don't know how much Zoom will make it quiet. So I'm gonna go on this and then get this done. We're just gonna pulse it until it gets combined, and then we really want it to move. So this is a recipe that we want to keep scraping down. Scrape down, scrape down, scrape down. Food processor can do its work. So what I think I'm gonna do, it's very thick. So let me taste it. And then what I might do is add a little more Good flavor. I'm going to add a little more lemon. Okay, a little bit more. And again, this is totally up to you. And I'm going to add a little more basil. I just love it. Okay. Maybe a tiny bit of water. And I have said add a water about a tablespoon at a time. One more scrape. It's looking good. Oh, smells good. All right, we are there. So you can see the beautiful pesto. And what I like to do, pesto has so much flavor that it is great to add a cube into some minestrone soup. It's great to make a dressing, use it as a base for a dressing. There's just so many things you can do. Put it into what we're going to do today, a beautiful pan full of greens, and let it just melt in. So what I like to do is have some whenever I need it from my freezer. So let me show you. I have ice cube trays. So most of us have machines in the refrigerator and freezer that make ice. So we're not really using ice cube trays for ice very much anymore, but they are fantastic for freezing small amounts of things. So one of those things is pesto. And this is your standard, ice cube tray, but I also found this at the dollar store, and it has silicone in the bottom. And so those just push right out, and they're a little bit bigger. So when I look in my freezer, I see, oh, hidden purple pesto. So when I open this up, you will see I have here. Go. My ice cubes that I popped out, and they're ready to roll. So I can use those, and they thaw so fast because they're in ice cube size. They're perfect. So we're gonna leave those in there because I'm gonna use those on another day, but they make it super easy. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, now I have to eat pesto for the next 5 days because I made a double, because you can do a double batch of this. No, do yourself a favor. Take care of your future self by putting some in the freezer. Now, I am going to leave it in here for now because we're not going to use the food processor for anything else. But we're going to use some of this for our purple veggie party. So that is it with the pesto. Does anybody, are there any questions about the pesto?
Cindy said, can you put how you roast and freeze your garlic in the show notes? Maybe that could be in the recipes too. That looks beautiful, by the way.
Yes, I can add that to I've already put the 3-page recipe together, but I can add that certainly, or I'll send it as a separate email for doing that. And I can even I'll do a little demo and a little link to show how to do that. Yeah.
You're saying how expensive pine nuts are where they live.
Yeah, no, pine nuts can be very expensive. And that's why this doesn't even need a nut or a seed, but it's just another opportunity to give some more diversity in the diet and some of those good nutrients like the omega-3s,
right.
And the monounsaturated fats. But again, this is not snacking on nuts. This is 2 tablespoons in a whole recipe.
Right. And Linda said, how long have you been vegan and why did you go vegan?
So I have been plant-based since 2011. So I have been a dietitian for 21 years now. And I've always taken the recommendations that I give my students, because I've been teaching at the college level for that long as well, very seriously. And I always want them to be healthier. And so I would tell them, eat more vegetables and, eat more beans and all these things. And also following the recommendations that I learned throughout my master's program and my undergrad was lean meats and dairy, but low fat and all of that. But people just didn't do, they made some improvements because the standard American diet is very sad. So any kind of movement away from that is definitely helping. But it was not really causing groundbreaking progress. And then I learned through a cooking class, interestingly enough, in my own neighborhood area from a vegan. And I thought, I didn't even know a vegetarian growing up. I grew up in Northern California. I didn't even know anyone in my high school that was vegetarian or vegan. And when I went to this class, she said, I'm vegan for the animals, but I don't like vegetables. And I thought, oh my goodness, I love vegetables and I love animals too. So I got to look into this. And then once I started learning and the science side of it, because I'm a science girl, I thought, that's it. And then from then on, I have been whole food plant-based because I do this for the health piece plus the environment plus the animals. But I can't justify being a junk food vegan because my heart is in nutrition. So yeah, but I love it. I would never have imagined it and I would never go back. The world just opened up. I've always loved to cook, but this just makes it so much more fun. There's so much diversity that we can incorporate. I feel very blessed. Very, very blessed. Now, the Instant Pot just dinged. So that means that it's cooked. So now we're going to wait for the natural pressure release for at least 10 minutes. So that's what it means when you just let it stay on its own. If you turn the little knob on top and release pressure, that would be considered manual release. So we don't need to do that for this. If you are cooking the spaghetti squash already cut into chunks or in half, you may want to do the manual release because you don't want it to overcook. But as a whole, we can let it sit in there for a little while. All right, so now I would like to move towards doing the purple veggie party. Okay, so as I was thinking about this, okay, what are the purple veggies that I use all the time? And I always use red onions, purple onions. They are purple, they are not red. And they always come into my cooking because the antioxidant level of onions is excellent, except when the difference between yellow onions, which has more color than white. So we have white onions with an antioxidant level of about 26 units. And then we go to yellow onions, which go into the 400. And then we go into the thousands when we get into the purple onions. So I'm going to slice a purple onion and get it cooking for our veggie party. I always have a whole bag or more of purple onions. So I'm going to grab those right now. You can always use more. This is, again, a recipe where the amounts are completely up to you. I love onion. My kids love onion. When I was little, though, I hated them. And I have to apologize to my mom at any time I can about the onions. I remember as a little kid picking them out of her pasta sauce. Can you believe this? I would just whine, there's onions in here. And I would try to pick them out. What was I thinking? I don't know. I'm sorry, Mom, if you're watching. I apologize. I love onions now. And thankfully, my kids love onions as well. So we're just going to slice this up easily. I like having good sized pieces of the onion. And you want to keep the root part. You don't want to cut that, cut the end off, but you don't want to cut the whole root out, because that's actually where some of the nutrients are concentrated. So you just want to cut around, just following the natural shape of the onion. And then we're just going to cut. And having sharp knives are very important. Makes cooking much easier. The knives don't have to be expensive though. This is an IKEA knife that was, I think, $19 at most. And as long as you keep them honed, then they will be, they'll serve you for a long time. Now my garbage bowl, I can just put the onion skins in. It really helps to keep everything organized. So I'm heating up the pan, and usually people ask on your show, what pans are you using? So I just have the stainless steel Salad Master, but it can be whatever pan that you'd like. And even with stainless steel, this would be the most challenging for people to think about cooking without oil. The non-stick pans that are that are coated with ceramic now make it really easy because they're non-stick. But even if you're doing a stainless steel pan, which you would think everything would stick, you can do this without oil. And that's what I do. I never cook with oil yet. I grew up cooking with oil, but now I don't use spray. I don't use anything like that at all. And even when I think of the spray, I think of all the years that we used it and how bad it made our baking sheets look. And you can't clean it off, and you think, what is happening inside if that's what's happening to my baking sheet? Ugh. So I don't use any. So I'm just testing for heat in the pan, and I'm feeling the heat. So I'm going to add the onion. Now, one way that I like to cook without oil is using the lid. So vegetables have a natural water content. So if you use the lid, it can help. So I'm going to turn this up a little bit, and I'm going to grab the lid. It can really help to avoid sticking. You want caramelization, but you don't necessarily want it to stick too much, just a little bit to get that caramelizing. Now to this, we're going to add another purple, and this purple is very close to my heart. This is purple cabbage, and I always have purple cabbage, and I like purple cabbage raw. I love purple cabbage cooked. I just love it. It's amazing. So I am using a quarter, maybe a little more of a medium head of cabbage. Again, the amount's not important, okay? Whatever suits your fancy. Now, can you do this with Napa cabbage or regular green cabbage? Of course, but we're having a purple party, okay? So that's why we're doing purple. And again, purple has unique phytonutrients because of the plant pigments that make it purple. So that's why we're taking advantage of that. So I'm just going to be cutting this cabbage just very rough cut. Just don't want huge pieces. And if you haven't had cooked cabbage the way that I'm going to show you, you're probably missing out, because most people, when they think of cooked cabbage, they think of really soft, mushy, like almost like cooked sauerkraut type. Oh no. Once you start eating it like this, you're going to be adding it to stir fries and adding it right and left. I mean, it's excellent. So there is some texture in it. So I want to make sure I am cooking it with the onion so I can hear the onion. So I'm going to go ahead and add the cabbage, and then I want to jump to the cauliflower. So you can hear that onion sizzling. And don't be afraid of it sticking. Just don't walk away. You know, when you're not cooking with oil, then you can't just set this, and even with oil, everything burns too. So you don't want to walk away, but you can always turn it down. You can always pull the pan off the heat. You don't need to be concerned. But this, oh, the onion smells good already. Now I'm going to add the cabbage. And I have purple cauliflower growing in my garden, but it's little, and I just couldn't bring myself to cut it for today. So I am going to use white cauliflower, but purple cauliflower will be perfect, of course. Now, the cauliflower, let me teach you something about this cauliflower. When you get the cauliflower, it has all of these leaves, right, on them. What do people do with this? They put it in their compost. No, no, no.
That's my favorite part. That's the most tender.
Oh, yeah. No, it's amazing. And I'll do stir fries with and soups with just stalks and leaves sometimes because it makes for a different meal. So you can do florets, but you can also do the leaves. You just want to make sure you clean them because dirt can get in the bottom of the leaves. So you just cut them off and clean them and they'll be great. So I'm going to do a mixture of cauliflower leaves and florets in this recipe. I just love it. And it's amazing. I was mentioning this to my students last week about cauliflower, the leaves, and they said, seriously? You use the leaves? Yes, it's all edible. There's so much value in this produce. And when people say, oh, it's so expensive to eat healthy, and they're probably not using all that they could just of the vegetables. So yeah, this is one of my favorites are the cauliflower leaves. So let's add them. Okay. And then I'm going to add some florets. And we always want to work with the cauliflower from the bottom. So we can just cut the florets off. And I only need a few cups. So I don't need to use this whole thing. I'll probably I know I have lots of fun cauliflower recipes that I love. A nacho lentil in the cookbook, and I love doing the buffalo wings, but with cauliflower, and we have lots of wonderful cauliflower recipes out there in the world. Cauliflower definitely has gotten a lot more press as of late. Okay, so let me add these florets. And I don't like overcooked cauliflower, so I don't have these florets tiny because I would like I'm going to be eating this. Unfortunately, you can't try mine. I wish you could. That's the only thing that we can't really do on Zoom is have you taste. But you can, let's see if you can see my veg. Yep, you can. So let that go. So we have purple onion, we have purple cabbage, we have cauliflower, which could be purple. And now we're going to add more of these beautiful purple collard greens or purple kale, whichever you wish. So, but now I want to use those stems and I want to put them in now. So I'm going to pull the leaves off of pull the stems off of several leaves so that I can put the stems in and put the leaves in a little bit later. So I'm just going to chop through those stems, and I like to chop them relatively small, but I'm going to add those. Okay. All right, let's add those babies. Don't waste any of this goodness. I love the colors. Okay, now I am going to chop these greens. I'm gonna chop them fairly small because I'm just now going, once the vegetables are tender, almost tender, I'll add these greens and let the greens just pop. So many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Dr. Greger's How Not to Diet and how he was singing the praises of the thylakoids in the greens. And they are most absorbable when the color is bright. So dark green, which we have here, and purple. And when the color has just popped, then we know they are the most absorbable. So I'm actually gonna, since I get to eat this, I'm gonna put more greens in. I just love these collards. Oh my gosh, please look into, there's even a Project Tree Collard that's out of the Bay Area. And it's just, these are amazing. One day, I hope every single house will be growing their own purple tree collards. That would be amazing. Okay, so let's check on these veggies. Oof. They're looking amazing. What I think I'm gonna do now is get a couple more ingredients out for the veggie party, and then we're gonna talk about the spaghetti squash, okay? So I have the greens that I've already cut. I'm gonna put them in a bowl because we'll add those. But I'm also going to add some peas. So because I wanna make this veggie party more of a complete meal, I am adding more of a legume, basically. So you can add more white beans, and I probably will. I have some white beans still left that are thawed out, but it's also nice to use peas. And you can find organic green peas. I was buying them at Trader Joe's because they always have organic green peas, but this I found just at the grocery store, the organic peas. So we are going to use a cup, and green peas should be something that you have in your freezer at all times. So organic corn and organic peas and organic kale and pesto, of course. But you want to make sure that you have those ready for you. A lot of people think that frozen vegetables are somehow less nutritious. But in fact, for many, because we get our produce from so far away in some cases, that the frozen is even more nutrient dense because it was processed, frozen, right after it was picked. And it could be picked right instead of unripe and then sent on a truck or a ship or wherever. So we're gonna leave the peas out. And nutritional yeast and mustard powder we'll deal with in a minute. Let me just make sure I don't need to turn down. You know, I think this is looking amazing. So you're seeing a lot of steam. I'm gonna give you a view of this.
Oh my God, that's very gorgeous.
And it's gonna get prettier. So I'm gonna add the greens now. And then I'm just gonna put the lid on, and I don't want this to overcook. So I'm just gonna give it a minute or two, assess. One thing that's nice with the collards, these tree collards, is that they're hardy enough where if you use spinach in this recipe, it will just mush. You know, I mean, it's so tender that it just falls right apart, and then it gets kind of hard to eat. So these are not going to do that. The purple kale's not going to do that. It's going to be an excellent texture, which is really important because for a lot of people, texture is really something that turns them off. And if they've ever had, you know, greens that are kind of slimy taste, you know, texture, then they're like, no, I don't want any of that. And that isn't what we're going to get when we use these wonderful greens. So even just that much time, you're going to be able to see here. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. The color. So let me do a little stirring before I show you. Hold on. Let me just cover it one more minute. It's starting to pop the color. Oh, it makes me so happy. It's so funny. When I teach, especially in my classroom, when right now we're doing remote, but when I was teaching in my classroom, I would say something about vegetables and just get so excited and so happy inside. And then I'd look out to my students and many of them would have looks on their face like, vegetables, ugh. And it's just so interesting how when you have a preconceived idea about what something will taste like, or it informs your experience. And so I said, hey, when I say vegetables, I get excited. But when you say vegetables, you may think of some canned asparagus or something that's just, oh my gosh, it was just tortured. And so I tell my students in our class, we don't say, ooh, gross. We say, that sounds interesting. I don't believe I've had that prepared in a way I've enjoyed it yet. And they always laugh at me, but I always say, no, we have to practice that because you could be missing something amazing. So let's look like this. Purple veggie party. Can you see how beautiful these are? Oh. Okay, so I'm turning this off because we're done. We are done with that cooking part. Okay, so this goes off and I'm not even gonna put, I might put the lid I don't think so. Maybe just to the side because I don't want it to overcook. It is excellent. So what I'm gonna do now is show you what to do with the Instant Pot with the spaghetti squash. So the pressure is already down. Yes, question.
Yes, please. Thank you, teacher. Connie wanted to know, where can somebody buy those purple collard tree greens without buying the whole tree?
I don't know. That's a great question because I've never seen them in the supermarket. So, and the tree, it makes it sound like there's this gigantic tree. No, when I bought them, and I just bought some at a local nursery, you call your nursery. Don't be intimidated that you can't grow it. It grows for me in a pot. So this is not, it's a like 15-gallon pot. So this is not something that you need to have a garden for. This could be done on a balcony. This could be done, anywhere right in front. We have it all in front of our house. So they're not in the ground. They're in pots. And so they're supposed to be lasting for years and years and years. Like not only 365 days a year, but like for years to come. And there's really no maintenance, a little bit of fertilizer, organic fertilizer, a couple times a year. That's it. They're really easy to grow, but I've not seen them in the supermarket. Maybe if we start asking for them, but I'm growing my own because, I spent $9 for a plant. It's like when I buy greens at the supermarket, they're less, I can't find them for less than $2.50 for a bunch. So you can find purple kale everywhere though. I think that's very, very easy. But I just wanted to tell you about this because this is amazing. So I'm sorry, I don't know where.
But Kathleen says, is there a knife sharpener that you recommend?
A knife sharpener. What I actually have to say about that is there are like Chef's Choice has one where you can use, but people tend to over sharpen instead of honing. So most people who have bought a knife that has a block, it came with this that they never use, right? Unless they're fake, playing jousting with someone, they don't use it. This is what keeps the fibers, the metal, all going in the right direction with the knife. So this is going to put them all back in the right direction, and the sharpener actually takes metal away from the knife. So if you end up sharpening your knife too often and actually using a sharpener, you're going to whittle yourself down to a tiny little blade. And it's funny, I think of my grandmother. She would have a knife that started out like this, but after the years, it was this tiny little, look like a boning knife, because she'd sharpened it so many times. That if you actually have it sharpened, and you can have it sharpened at even the butcher shop, like in your normal grocery store, or go to a knife sharpener once every maybe 18 months. I mean, it's not often, but honing, it is recommended that you hone. Okay, so think about you can go online and find, but honing every time before you use the knife. That's ideal for making your knives last longer. But most people assume, oh, they're dull, I'm going to sharpen them. But it could be they're just out of alignment. Okay, and that's where the honing comes in. Great question. Okay, so I don't see any more waving arms. So I think we're good. Yes? Okay, so what I want to do now this is the spaghetti squash. Now I'm able to hold it, but because we've had enough time waiting, but if it's hot, make sure you use a pot holder. Now you're gonna want to cut it in widthwise if you want the longest strands. Okay, so normally you see it lengthwise, but if you want the longest strands, you're gonna cut it widthwise. And there we go. Now, we did not cut it before, so there's seeds in there. And the best way that I found, if you're dealing with the cooked squash, is to use a cookie scoop, a kitchen scoop. So I'm going to grab that. And we want one like this, right? That I used an ice cream scoop. That's the old Pampered Chef, because I used to do Pampered Chef many years ago. And that ice cream scoop doesn't seem to be sharp enough on the edges for it to work really well. But these kitchen scoops work great. So I'm going to scoop out the seeds. Now, I love the seeds with a little bit of no salt seasoning on them, whatever your favorite smoked paprika and garlic and cumin. I have a couple of spicy blends in the Foodie Bar Way cookbook that I like to use. And then I just roast them for just a little bit because these are already cooked. So, or you can just enjoy them as is. So that was the scoop on one side. And then here I'm getting, and this is hot. This is, my kids say, Mom, you have asbestos hands. Well, I kind of do from a lot of cooking. Okay, so that's it. That was as easy as it was to take out so we can see those. Now, this is a critical step that you have probably never learned before. We are here gonna use a colander. Now, normally I would do this over the sink, but you can't see me with the Zoom at that point. So I want in that space in the kitchen. So I am going to use a little pot holder because I'm going to be holding this. And we're using a colander because there's a lot of moisture in this spaghetti squash. And if you don't let the moisture evaporate, you're going to get soggy, kind of gushy spaghetti squash. We don't want that. So I'm just pulling it out with the fork. I have so much steam in my face, but I'm going to come close so you can see the little strands. Okay. And this was perfect amount of cooking for this size. So this was 16 minutes. So yay. Oh, I love it. For a while there, I wasn't using spaghetti squash. I don't know, it was just out of my rotation. And then I brought it back in and I am just delighted. It was actually difficult for me to figure out what recipe to do today because I knew I wanted to do spaghetti squash, but I have so many ways that I can do it. So I'm going to do more in the future. I may see if AJ will have me back in the future and we can do another version.
Absolutely. Especially when you cook in purple.
Yes, I know. Okay, so we're getting the rest of this. And what was so nice is that we didn't have to worry about cutting off the end. And, oh, I don't know. It just made it so easy. You saw, I just put it right in the Instant Pot. Okay, so I've got all this goodness out. And what we are doing now, though, is waiting. So see all of the steam, right? So we need this to sit for at least 10 minutes to let this steam leave. Because again, otherwise you're going to end up with a mushy, kind of watery, potentially mess. And we don't want that. So what I'm going to do for time is I'm going to grab some of the spaghetti squash that I made yesterday. So here I'm going to let this sit. And I'm so excited because I get to eat that when it cools.
You know, it's so funny because yesterday's guest, Carissa Vukovic, was also a Pampered Chef consultant, and I was too. It seems like a lot of us got our start that way.
Yes, I hadn't ever done any of that type of marketing work, but I love their products. They have
use
good
them all the
things.
time. Sorry about that.
No, I still use a lot of their items.
It's good stuff. Yeah. It's really good stuff.
It is. And I couldn't sell anything that I didn't believe in. So
yeah, I was good at the presentation, but not good at the sales part.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would do. And then, oh yeah.
And you know what I love is a lot of their stuff has lifetime warranty. And I've had 3 things now that they've replaced.
Yeah. No, their racks are excellent. Their little mini muffin pans are excellent. There's just some things that are incredible. Okay, I'm going to turn our purple veggie party vegetables back on. And then I'm going to add the pesto and stir that through. And then I am going to add the peas. And then we're going to stir in the spaghetti squash. So either way, like I had said, I made some yesterday, so I have some spaghetti squash in here, but we may end up using the fresh stuff. It doesn't matter. So with the pesto, I had said about half a cup, but that's again, like if you're a pesto lover, you just pile it in there, okay? So I'm adding the peas, my flying balls. So you could add more white beans instead. That's fine. You could do any kind of combination. I am going to add, I think I'm just going to do this by sight because I know, oh, this pesto, it smells so good. We're going to mix this in. I wonder if I move to this.
This is an interesting question from Lori, and I don't know the answer because I don't use my stones anymore. She says, "Can you use your stoneware when you don't use oil?"
Yes, absolutely. So Pampered Chef has the pizza stone, but they have the stone casserole dishes and those types of things. Yes, actually, it almost works like the what are they called? Cast iron skillets, where it's seasoned and then nothing sticks. So I never used any spray or anything on my stoneware, but I'm also always in the habit of using parchment paper, but I don't think it would be a problem at all to use the stoneware. I still have casseroles that I use. Yeah, they have beautiful, their stoneware is beautiful. So, but it makes a non-stick surface because you're not even supposed to use soap or anything, you know, because then it'll absorb it. And so, yeah. So now I'm stirring in this pesto. I changed burners because I wanted to, I don't know if this makes it easier to see what I'm doing. I'm tiny in the corner, so I can't tell if you can see it any better, but I can hold it up. So I'm just stirring in that pesto so that I'm warming it through. And again, you decide how much pesto. If it was just for me, I would likely add even more because I love pesto. But again, your choice. And then I'm going to add some of the spaghetti squash. So I said 2 to 3 cups, but we're talking about 42 calories a cup, okay? Compared to what, 175 for whole wheat pasta and 220 for the white refined pasta. So you don't need to be worried about how much you're adding here at all. I don't like at all talking about calories, but when people say, oh yeah, squash versus pasta is the same. Oh no, it's not the same. You're getting a ton of your nutrients. It's rich in water, right? Which is going to help us feel full. We're getting fiber. We're getting B vitamins. It's a win-win-win. So I'm actually going to add the rest of this in here. Now it's already cooked. So we just want to warm it through. And then there's 2 things we're going to put on top. Now I've made this multiple times, but I made it yesterday because I wanted a picture for you. So I took several pictures because I wasn't sure about the weather and if I would be able to get enough sunshine to take a nice picture. So I can text you if you need a picture, AJ.
If you email it to me, I can make a thumbnail from it.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. I'll email it to you.
You know that I found a spaghetti squash at Costco, like in a box, and you just have to like rehydrate it. Isn't that cool?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I have not seen that.
Yeah,
So it's shelf stable.
I just thought this is amazing, you know?
Wow. No, I have to look for it. You know what's crazy about Costco is the variety of products varies so much from Costco to Costco. Someone will mention something and I'll go, oh no, we don't have that. It's like,
Yeah, that's true. But if you're interested, I could look at the box, and I'm sure the company must sell somewhere else.
Yeah, no. And if we know the item number or the name brand, then they can look it up and find out if it's accessible where I am. Because I know you're more in the desert.
Yep.
Now. Okay, this is it. So let me show you.
One more question, if you don't mind. Michael says, can you use a salad spinner to remove the water from the squash? Wouldn't it maybe get stuck in the holes though?
Oh, that's interesting. You probably could. It would probably turn into a pretty messy situation. And it's less about spinning it. I mean, obviously, if you spin it, you're going to remove some water, but it's more about time to let the steam evaporate. So you're not trying to make it dry necessarily. You just don't want that condensation, that steam to just stay in. So if you were to put it in a container after you took it out, then it would just kind of keep steaming and make too much water. So I've had really good luck with the colander, and it's pretty easy to clean. Because it's not, the spaghetti squash isn't sticky as far as like the sugar content, like you would when you cook a butternut squash, it's actually syrupy, or a sweet potato. It's really sticky sweet. This doesn't do that. So the colander cleans very easy, which potentially means the salad spinner could clean easy. I don't know. He should give it a whirl and let us know. I have not done it like that. Okay, let me get a plate that I want to put this in. And then I want to show you the 2 toppings, okay? Because one of the toppings is very important nutrition-wise. Okay, actually, they're both really important. So let me grab a nice plate.
Hello, everyone. I never know what to say when we're on these breaks. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I can also tell you now who tomorrow's guest is. It's Melanie Joy. She's written many.
Oh, she's incredible.
Yeah, she lives in Germany now. So.
Oh, wow. No, her work is so important. Okay, so I just grabbed this size of a bowl, but really bring on the big bowls, okay? Because this is all goodness. So what I'm going to add now is a little bit of nutritional yeast. And if you don't like it, don't add it. That's fine. We have, I don't get the ones with the extra folic acid. So I'm not interested in adding extra folic acid. This has a tiny bit of folate, but it's a small amount. You don't want a super fortified amount. So I'm just adding a little bit on top. I'll show you at the end, but it does have some B vitamins, but it's more for flavor as well. But then the really secret piece is yellow mustard powder. Okay, so I'm going to grab it, and yellow mustard is going to give us some of the enzyme that naturally is in these cruciferous vegetables, but is destroyed by heat. So by adding a little bit of the yellow mustard on top, that's it, pinch, small amount, you'll actually be able to make the plants, the wonderful cruciferous veggies, will be able to create the fantastic cancer preventing and health promoting compounds as if you were eating these veggies raw. Okay, so it puts that enzyme back in, because once the health promoting compounds are created, they're heat stable. But when they're in the pre-creation mode, you need the enzymes. So we've just added the enzymes back in. You can also add some fresh greens on top. That would work. You could take some cabbage and put some on top, but that's it. Now, another addition to this that would be very tasty would be some purple tomatoes or regular cherry tomatoes, because that would add wonderful color as well. And I have some. And one of the things that I learned recently was we had a really bumper crop of cherry tomatoes this year. They were just in the perfect spot in our yard. And when we stopped getting so much sun, when the weather got cooler, we had all these green tomatoes that were still left on the vine. And I told my husband, no, I can use those green tomatoes. So just pull them off when you take the plants out. And so I had 2 big baking sheets worth of these tomatoes, and they were in like pink or green or very, very light red. And I was amazed. They actually ripened. Many of them ripened. I made several things with the green tomato soups and different things like that. But some of the pink and the light green actually continue to ripen. And now I'm still enjoying them. So that's a little bonus. But yes, this is our purple veggie party with spaghetti squash and hidden purple pesto. I want to show you my Foodie Bar Way. So this is my cookbook where I have the pesto foodie bar, which teaches you how to make pesto from scratch, like I did this. This recipe today did not exist before I created it, and I created it from the template that is provided in this book. That's the pesto foodie bar. So not only, like I said, do I have several pesto recipes in here, but I also teach you how to make your own, because you don't need to feel like you're stuck to a recipe. If you don't have parsley, what could you use instead? If you don't have purple collards, what could you use instead? And that's what this teaches you how to do. So it really empowers people to be able to enjoy the process in the kitchen and feeding their cells the best food on the planet, in my opinion. All right. Any questions? Any last questions?
This is just a wonder. Everybody's just saying, excellent presentation, so informative. You're just a wonderful teacher.
Thank you. Thank you. I do this from my heart for sure.
Well, and it shows. It's such a pleasure having you on. And of course, you're welcome back. You just give some of the most comprehensive presentations with delicious recipes.
Excellent. So make sure I will absolutely be back, and make sure everybody, if you want the recipes, then go to that tinyurl.com/purple pesto. And you got it.
And I put the link in the chat box and in the show notes. And the name of the book, Connie, is The Foodie Bar Way. And you can get it at your website and on Amazon, right?
Yes. Foodiebars.com is my website. And I'll sign a little personal note to you and put it in the mail. Or you can do it through Amazon. Yes. No personal note through Amazon. That's taken care of by them. But I can do the personal note. And that information
is also in the show notes, how to get the book and the website. So
thank you so much, AJ.
Oh, thank you. This is just this looks, you made me so hungry. So I get to eat lunch now. Then thank you so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Do please come back tomorrow when my guest is Melanie Joy, and we'll be talking about how to build more powerful vegan relationships. Thanks again, Timaree. You're amazing.
Bye. Thank you.